Okay, drawing two, we're going to focus today on how we can effectively crop our photo to create the best portrait composition. And so some of this is going to be review from drawing one, but I thought it was a good place to start from, considering if someone had drawing one last semester or with another teacher and maybe didn't get quite the same way I normally introduce portraiture. So what I'm going to have you do is look at this photo, these two photos, and decide which of them have the best composition. So just take a moment, which one has the best composition and why you like the composition of one of them better than the other. Now, I normally have a discussion with the group, but since I'm recording this, I'm just going to give you kind of a couple of the things that normally come up. So the one on the left, this student is perfectly centered in the composition. And this is what a lot of non-artists do. They'll just take a photo and stick the most important thing right dead center. Even her head is almost in the exact middle of this photo. She posed really nicely here. She has a really intense expression. There's good lighting, there's good focus. But overall, it's a little bit too center focused. So if you go to this one on the right, you'll notice that it's the exact same photo. It has just been cropped so that there's a little bit less of her arm showing. There's a little bit less of the top of her, and she shifted visually to the left side. And so because it's been shifted to the left, notice her eyes are looking towards the right, and there is all this space for her to look towards. Her expression looks so much more intense, right? The emotive quality of the portrait is so much more intense on the right than it is on the left. And there's a lot more of her and less of the background. So we're gonna try to make our photos as interesting and original as possible. And we're gonna do that by cropping. So cropping is cutting off or masking out unneeded parts of the image. And there are several reasons why you might want to do this. Go ahead and take notes. Focus on the areas, instead of writing everything down, really focus on the most important parts. So like on this side, it's the stuff that's in yellow. So one of the things that we do to crop is we often try to get rid of parts that don't help the composition. You know, eliminating unnecessary background, or like in this photo, I don't really need to be showing my airband t-shirt or even my ID. Another thing is to get across the meaning and emphasize what's important. So in this portrait, I was trying to look defiant. And so that expression on my face is where I really want to pull the attention, not to, once again, what I'm wearing. And then also, if you did not take the portrait yourself, that's going to make some minor changes to the composition and make it much more original. So you aren't just stealing someone else's photo, but you're changing it and to make it your own. Obviously, this photo being taken for this assignment is also another way that you personally can have ownership. So go ahead and make yourself a T-bar in your sketchbook. And what I'd like you to do is take some notes that you can use when you are cropping your photos today using Photopea, or whatever other device we're using if we're at school. Okay, so don't center your face, right? Once again, that is the most common idea, and it's kind of boring. It really lacks visual movement and your eye gets stuck in the center. So instead, use the rule of thirds. You can hit this link and watch a video that shows how to apply the rule of thirds to film and photo. So the rule of thirds explains what part of an image our eye is drawn to first. And so what you do is you use a grid, like a tic-tac-toe, and where those 4 points are is the most effective place to put your focal point. So like this example at the top, the girl's head is in one of these intersecting parts. In this image of the dome, The second strongest place to put your focal point is on one of these lines, and it could be either vertical or horizontal. So we want to draw this rule of thirds as a reminder to us that we do not want to put things in the center and that we want to shift the weight, hopefully, to one of these intersecting parts. I will show you some examples where they don't necessarily line up perfectly, but you can see how you can use this to move things out of the center. So on your do side, try to place your face off sides. We don't want to have a symmetrical balance. So you're going to shift it to the left or shift it to the right. There might be a chance that you would have to do a center focus, but this works typically for frontal portraits and when your expression is very, very extreme. And so you might crop in really severely to get this one to work. Okay. So we want to shift that visual balance either to the left or to the right so that we have a balance of positive and negative space. So positive is you, negative space is background. And you normally want to have a 60-40, 70-30 ratio rather than having it be 50-50. So we don't want 50-50. Now we're not going to crop to a square, but we want to make sure that we do not have, right, a 50-50. So because we're doing portraiture, I would really like you to have more of you and less of the background. I think that's going to be easier for you, especially if you are at home, right? So we want to have asymmetrical balance, right? And we want to make sure that we have something at least 60-40. So there's at least 60% her and 40% background. You might notice that some of these slides are different. These black ones are from drawing 1, and the new ones are in white for drawing 2. Another thing that you want to be careful of is not cropping too close to your head or to your neck. It can kind of feel awkward. Sometimes it makes you feel extremely claustrophobic or even like decapitated. We don't want to awkwardly crop out an ear like we have here. It's like sliced just ever so close to the edge of the face, which is a little odd. And so we want to just be extra careful. Another thing that you might want to do is give yourself room for your eyes to look towards. You can see that example that we started with did this. And so if I crop too close to the eyes, my eyes kind of stop. And so that idea of being optimistic or defiant kind of gets lost. And it's a little bit better on this image on the left. Here's a good example of giving your eyes somewhere to look to. So here you can see my eyes are looking down to the left, but here it's looking to the left and it gets cut off. Here it kind of feels like I'm stuck in a box or claustrophobic. Now, if that's your idea, then that's fine. But if I was trying to do something that was much more like contemplative, this image on the right would be better. So catch yourself up. You can always go back and make sure that you have your list of do's and don'ts that you can use when you are cropping your photos. So what I'd like you to do is to decide which of these images uses the rule of third best, the one on the left or the one on the right. So the one on the right definitely uses the rule of thirds better. So even though her eyes or her nose or her mouth is not perfectly on one of these intersecting lines, her face lines up with that right line on the side, and it does have better visual weight. You can crop your photo either horizontally or vertically for this assignment. Just keep in mind that how you took the photo might dictate what works best with your image that you've chosen. Okay, there are many different options that you can use using those rules of thirds and those do's and don'ts lists. So remember, your focal point, like the eyes, can line up with one of these intersecting points or one of these lines, right? We can do it vertical or we can do it horizontal. You can crop in kind of extreme. Normally I say I want to see a majority of your face, so I don't want you cropping just to an eye. But if you want to, I'm okay with this going in a little bit more extreme as long as it has good composition. And so what you're going to do is you're going to crop your images so that they can fit the 15 by 20 gray mixed media board that is in your set or you have been given. And so you're going to go ahead and log into Photopea, and you can look at these printable directions. So you can print them, or you could do split screen. You just have to search how to split screen on your Chromebook. And I think in 4 easy steps, you can figure out how you can show the handout and crop at the same time. I also have a video tutorial here that you can watch if that helps you. But definitely need to look at the directions in order for it to fit the 15 by 20 board. If you don't follow this, it's not going to work for the assignment. Okay, so once you have cropped your photo, you're going to then put a grid. So if you look at this image on the bottom, that there is a red grid placed on top of this photo of my son. And so there are directions, once again, that can be split screened or printed, and you're gonna follow those directions to add that to your photo. And so you're gonna use this link here as well. Then eventually we will draw the same grid on our illustration board, and we're going to draw it out square by square.